Over the next 4 videos, we're going to learn the basics of 3D modeling in Blender by making a desk and some objects to go with it. In this video, we're going to look at menus, controlling the viewport by panning, rotating, and zooming, adding objects in object mode, and editing the scale, location, and rotation of those objects. We've got Blender open here. Let's go ahead and create a new file. And I'd highly encourage you to follow along and do this with me. So just to start off looking at the menus, you can see that we're in object mode here. In future videos, we're also going to check out edit and texture paint mode. Here's our option to add in objects. Typically, we're going to be adding in meshes. We'll look at that in a few minutes. On the left side here, we've got some options for manipulating the objects on the screen. And on the right side, we have details about those objects. So a list of objects in our scene, as well as a variety of menus through which we can manipulate those objects. In our viewport, we can change the view using primarily the scroll pad on your laptop or the scroll bar on your mouse. And if you click and hold it down, or use typically 2 fingers on your scroll pad, you're going to be able to rotate around on your viewport. You can also hold down Shift and pan like this, or hold down Command or Alt to zoom in and zoom out. Take a minute and get used to those controls. Now, to make our desk, we're going to have to mess with our cubes. Typically, what we're going to do when we make an object is we're going to start with one of these basic shapes like a cube or a cylinder or a sphere, and then we're going to edit it until it looks like our object. So some of our editing options include rotate, and I want to point out hotkeys get really useful as you use this program more, and if you hover over, you'll see when something is a hotkey. So I can press R and freely rotate, and after you use a transformation hotkey, you can also press an axis, X, Y, or Z, to constrain your transformation. So after R, if I press Z, then I'm rotating it with the Z axis fixed in place. Kind of cool, right? So I can click to do that. I'm going to undo it. I can also rotate and keep the Y axis in place. Another option that we're going to want to get comfortable with is scaling. And to point out how you can do this by clicking, you can grab the center here, or the whole circle, and scale the entire cube. Or, just like you can constrain using the hotkeys, you can grab just red here for the x-axis and scale only the x-axis. Scale only the blue axis. And then the last one we want to look at here is moving. So this is manipulating the location, and it's the same thing. So we can hover over here, check out the hotkey because we might end up doing a lot of this. So it says G, so I can hit G and move it around. I can hit G and then Z and move it only up and down. We can also, on the right side menu under Object Properties, edit these as numbers. I think this is really useful a lot of the time. And typically in Blender, 1 unit represents 1 meter. So that's, and actually they even write it in here. So that's a good way to think about it. If I want to move 1 meter in the X direction, I could type in 1 here, and I could go 2 meters and 3 meters. And we're going to bring it back to our origin point here. And so to make our desk, what I'm going to want to do is maybe just start with the top of the desk, and we're going to bring the scale of the Z axis down and then just widen our desk. And that's starting to look pretty close to a desk. That looks pretty good to me. We're going to add in the legs in a future video under edit mode. And let's add a couple other things to our desk that we'll learn how to manipulate as well. So I'm a big coffee drinker. Why don't we add in a coffee mug? That's a really big coffee mug. So of course what we're going to want to do is go to scale. And I'm going to do that on the right side here and scale it down to about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. And that looks pretty close. We could fine-tune the size a little bit later. Maybe we'll want to add some paper to our desk as well. And so we're going to use a plane for that. And let's go with maybe 20 centimeters by 12 centimeters. Seems a little bit small compared to the coffee mug, so we might have to edit that later. And let's add a pencil as well. So a cylinder looks pretty close to a pencil. First thing we're going to want to do is rotate it. Actually, I think I'm going to rotate it on Y here instead. Remember, you can always undo your changes using Control Z or hitting Edit, Undo. And let's edit our pencil, and we'll go for maybe 2 centimeters and then 10, and that's looking pretty good. We'll zoom in, just make sure that that kind of makes sense. Yeah, that looks kind of close to a pencil anyways. It's a little thick, but we'll come back and fine tune that later. All right, on to the next video where we're going to look at using edit mode to make these objects a little bit more realistic.